Neil Armstrong, Gene Cernan have both testified against commercial spaceflight and the way that you're developing it, and I wonder what you think of that.
I was very sad to see that because those guys are, those guys are heroes of mine, so it's really tough.
They inspired you to do this, didn't they?
Yes.
And to see them casting stones in your direction.
It's difficult.
When I was a kid, I was wondering kind of what's the meaning of life? Like, why are we here? What's it all about? And I came to the conclusion that what really matters is trying to understand the right questions to ask. And the more that we can increase the scope and scale of human consciousness, the better we are able to ask these questions. So I think that there's certain things that are necessary to ensure that the future is good. Some of those things are, in the long term, having long-term sustainable transport and sustainable energy generation, to be a spacefaring civilization, and for humanity to be out there among the stars and be a multi-planetary species. It's important for the long-term survival of humanity. The part that I find personally most motivating is that it creates a sense of adventure, and it makes people excited about the future. And if you consider two futures, one where we are forever confined to Earth until eventually something terrible happens, or another future where we are out there on many planets, maybe even going beyond the solar system, I think that second version is incredibly exciting and inspiring. There's got to be things that people find inspiring and make life worth living.
That's really why I started SpaceX. What I'm trying to do is to make a significant difference in spaceflight and help make spaceflight accessible to almost anyone.
How did you get the expertise to be the chief technology officer of a rocket ship company?
I do have a physics background. That's helpful as a foundation. And then I read a lot of books and talked to a lot of smart people.
You're self-taught?
Yeah.
When you had that third failure in a row, did you think, I need to pack this in?
Never.
Why not?
I don't ever give up.
8 weeks later, Musk bet the company on another flight.
We have liftoff.
And this time around, everything worked.
Perfect.
If that fourth launch hadn't worked, that would have been it. We would have not had the resources to mount a fifth.
You couldn't have gone out at that point.
Yes, death would have been, I think, inevitable because we did not have the resources to mount a fifth launch.
Do you believe that your rocket will be the next American rocket to take an astronaut into space?
I believe that is the most likely outcome, yes.
How did you figure you were going to start a car company and be successful at it?
Well, I didn't really think Tesla would be successful. I thought we would most likely fail. But I thought that we at least could address the false perception that people had that an electric car had to be ugly and slow and boring like a golf cart.
Musk is reducing greenhouse gases, which he believes threaten the world.
I've had a long-standing interest in electric cars because I think that's the way to achieve sustainable transport. You know, that's the original reason I came out to California, was to try to develop energy storage mechanisms for electric vehicles. In 2003, I got a call from J.B. Straubel and another guy who mentioned electric cars. And they mentioned a company called AC Propulsion in Southern California that had developed a kind of a prototype electric sports car. So I got a demo in the car and I was like, whoa, this is great. So I tried to convince AC Propulsion to commercialize the sports car, but they were not interested in doing so. Eventually, after not being able to convince them for several months, I said, okay, look, if you guys don't do it, then I'd like to try to commercialize electric sports cars. I connected up with J.B. Straubel and a couple other guys, Martin Eberhard, Mark Toppening, and Ian Wright, and we created Tesla Motors. I'm interested in things that change the world or affect the future in wondrous new technology, where you see it and you're like, wow, how did that even happen? How's that possible? You can drive for free forever on pure sunlight. That's the message we're trying to convey. The Tesla strategy has been the same from the beginning, which is to start out initially with a car that was expensive but low volume, and that was the Roadster sports car. And then step two was a car that was sort of mid-price, mid-volume, and that's the Model S. And Model X also fits into that category. And then our third generation car would be low price, high volume. The reason for that strategy is that in order to make any technology mass market, it takes time. You've got to go through major design iterations. You also need economies of scale. So you've got to have much bigger factories, you've got to raise a ton of money, and people will only give you money if you've shown some prior success. The fundamental good of Tesla will be measured by to what degree did we accelerate the advent of electric vehicles. Tesla really faced a severe threat of death due to the Model 3 production ramp. The company was bleeding money like crazy, and if we didn't solve these problems in a very short period of time, we would die. I was working 7 days a week, sleeping in the factory, worked in the paint shop, general assembly, body shop. No one should put this many hours into work. This is not good. And people should not work this hard. They should not do this. This is very painful. It hurts my brain and my heart. This is not recommended for anyone. I just did it because if I didn't do it, good chance I would die.
Being focused on something that you're confident will have high value to someone else, and just being really rigorous in making that assessment. A challenge for entrepreneurs is to say, well, what's the difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic dream? All those things improve the odds of success. I think successful entrepreneurs probably come in all sizes, shapes, and flavors. An obsessive nature with respect to the quality of the product is very important. I think it's important that you really like whatever you're doing. If you don't like it, life is too short. If you like what you're doing, you think about it even when you're not working. It's something that your mind is drawn to. And if you don't like it, you just really can't make it work. A good framework for thinking is physics, the sort of first principles reasoning. Boil things down to their fundamental truths and reason up from there, as opposed to reasoning by analogy. Through most of our life, we get through life by reasoning by analogy, which essentially means kind of copying what other people do with slight variations. And you have to do that, otherwise mentally you wouldn't be able to get through the day. But when you want to do something new, you have to apply the physics approach. Physics is really sort of figuring out how to discover new things that are counterintuitive, like quantum mechanics. It's really counterintuitive. And then also to really pay attention to negative feedback.
Regulators and others are a little bit in denial about this, is the speed, the pace of change. What is the consequence of that speed of change?
Particularly like things seem to be accelerating to something. The first controlled powered flight was 1903 with the Wright brothers. In 1969, we were able to send somebody to the moon. Then we had the space shuttle. The space shuttle could only take people to low Earth orbit. Then the space shuttle retired, and the United States could take no one to orbit. So that's the trend. The trend is like down to nothing. If you are mistaken when they think that technology just automatically improves, it does not automatically improve. It only improves if a lot of people work very hard to make it better.